Good morning, students. Today we will revise Geography Chapter 1, Resources and Development. First, we will revise the meaning of the term resource and then the types of resources. Resource means everything which is available in our environment, which can be used to satisfy our needs, provided it is technologically accessible, economically feasible, and culturally acceptable. On the basis of origin, resources can be classified as biotic resources and abiotic resources. Biotic means living. Biotic resources means the resources that are obtained from biosphere and have life is known as biotic resources. Example, human beings, flora and fauna, fisheries, livestock, etc. The next is abiotic resources. Abiotic resources means the resources which are composed of non-living things. For example, rocks, metals, minerals, air, water, sunlight, soil, and so on. The next is classification of resources on the basis of exhaustibility. On the basis of exhaustibility, resources are classified into two: renewable resources and non-renewable resources. Renewable resources, as the name says, the resources which can be renewed or reproduced by physical, chemical, or mechanical process, is known as renewable resources, or else the resources which we can replenish, the replenishable resources are known as renewable resources. Example, solar energy and wind energy, then water, wildlife, forest, and so on. The renewable resources can further be divided into continuous or flow. The next is non-renewable resources. Non-renewable resources means these resources, it will take a long geological time to occur. Minerals and fossil fuels are the examples of non-renewable resources. These resources takes millions of years in their formation. Some of the resources like metals are recyclable, and some like fossil fuels cannot be recycled and get exhausted with their use. The next is classification of resources on the basis of ownership. On the basis of ownership, resources can be classified as individual resources, community-owned resources, national resources, and international resources. Individual resources. Individual resources means the resources which are owned by private individuals. Many farmers own land which is allotted to them by government against the payment of revenue. So for example of individual resources means plots, houses, plantation, then pond, pasture lands, and so on. So all these are the few examples of individual resources. The next is community-owned resources. Community-owned resources means the resources which are accessible to all the members in the community. For example, something which is common to a group of people. For example, the grazing grounds, then the burial grounds, village ponds, public parks, picnic spots. All these are examples. Playgrounds in urban areas. So all these are the examples of the community-owned resources. It means the resources which can be accessible to all the members of a particular community, or else to the resources which are accessible to a group of people. Then next is national resources. National resources means all the resources that belongs to the nation. The country has legal power to acquire even private property for public goods. For example, you might have seen that roads, canals, railways are being constructed on fields owned by some individuals. So technically, all the resources belongs to the nation is known as national resources. See, some other examples like minerals, water resources, forest, wildlife, land. All these are the examples of national resources. Then all these type of resources, which within the political boundaries and oceanic area up to 12 nautical miles, that is 22.2 kilometer from the coast, it is termed as territorial water, and the resources in that area belong to the nation. So in very simple terms, national resources means the resources that belong to the nation is known as national resources. The next is international resources. The oceanic resources beyond 200 nautical miles of the exclusive economic zone belong to the open ocean, and no individual country can utilize these without the concurrence of international institutions. So such resources is termed as international resources. So international resources means the oceanic resources beyond 200 nautical miles of the exclusive economic zone is known as international resources. The next is classification of resources on the basis of the status of development. On the basis of the status of development, resources can be classified as potential resources, stock, and reserves. Potential resources. Potential resources means the resources which are found in a region but have not been utilized. Such resources are known as potential resources. For example, the western parts of India, particularly in Rajasthan and Gujarat, we have enormous potential for the development of wind and solar energy. But so far, this has not been developed properly. So the resources which is found in a particular region, but we have not utilized that to the maximum level, or else we are not utilizing it in a proper way. Such kind of resources are known as potential resources. The next is developed resources. Developed resources, we already learned in class 8 what is developed resources. Developed resources means the resources which are surveyed and their quality and quantity have been determined for utilization. The development of resources depends on technology and the level of their feasibility. Then we learned about stock. Stock means the materials in the environment which have the potential to satisfy human needs, but human beings do not have the appropriate technology to access these resources. So such kind of resources is known as stock. For example, water is a compound of two inflammable gases, hydrogen and oxygen, which can be used as a rich source of energy. But we do not have the required technology. The next classification of resources on the basis of the status of development is reserves. Reserve is a subset of stock which can be put into use with the help of existing technology, but its use has been postponed for future, is called reserve. For example, we have water in a dam, and that water can be used to generate hydroelectric power. So we are utilizing the existing stock as a reserve. So the water in the dams is a stock. So with the existing technology, I can use that stock, and hence we can call that stock as reserve. It means water in dams are reserves which can be used in future. Human beings used resources indiscriminately, and this led to major problems. The first and the foremost problem is depletion of resources for satisfying the greed of few individuals. It means human greed is the reason behind the depletion of resources. Then the second point is accumulation of resources in few hands, which in turn divide the society into two segments, that is the rich and the poor. The third point is indiscriminate exploitation of resources has led to global ecological crises such as global warming, ozone layer depletion, environmental pollution, land degradation, and so on. All these are caused because of the unthoughtful use of the resources. An equitable distribution of resources has become essential for a sustained quality of life and global peace. If the present trend of resource depletion by a few individuals and countries continues, the future of our planet is in danger. Therefore, resource planning is essential for sustainable existence of all forms of life. Sustainable existence is a component of sustainable development. Sustainable economic development means the development which does not harm the environment, and the recent development does not overlook or damage the needs and requirements of the future generation. So sustainable development means using the resources in such a manner that it will be available even for the future generation. Then we learned about resource planning in India. Resource planning, it means the judicious use of resources, that is known as resource planning. Resource planning includes identifying the resources across the country. That means to identify which state is having which resource in abundant and which resource in scarce. Now the question is how to identify the resources. This involves surveying, mapping, and qualitative and quantitative estimation and measurement of resources by geologists. The second point is evolving a planning structure endowed with appropriate technology, skill, and institutional setup for implementing resource development plans. Third point is matching the resource development plans with overall national development plans. Then we learned about land utilization. Land utilization. Land resources are used for different purpose. So here we learn that land is a resource, but it is not infinite. So we must use the land judiciously. Land utilization is very important. In India, according to the law, 33% of the land should be given to forest area because that will maintain the ecological balance. So we have 33% of the land is forest area. Then we have uncultivated land. Uncultivated land. It means the land that to put to non-agricultural uses, such as for buildings, roads, factories, and so on. Then we have barren and wasteland. Then we learned about other uncultivated land. Other uncultivated land, there we discussed about permanent pastures and grazing land, then land under miscellaneous. Then we learned about fallow lands. Fallow lands, there we learned about current fallow land and other than current fallow land. So current fallow land. Current fallow land means the land which is left without cultivation for 1 year or less than 1 agricultural year. It is known as current fallow land. Then other than current fallow land means the land which is left uncultivated for the past 1 to 5 agricultural years. Such kind of land is known as other than current fallow land. So under fallow land, we learned about current fallow land and other than current fallow land. Then we learned about net sown area. Net sown area sown more than once in an agricultural year plus net sown area is known as gross cropped area. The use of land is determined both by physical factors such as topography, climate, soil types, as well as human factors such as population, density, technological capability, and culture and traditions, etc. Total geographical area of India is 3.28 million square kilometer. Then we learned about land degradation and conservation measures. Land degradation and the conservation measures. So land degradation means if we use and exploit the land in so many ways, then it will be surely degraded. It means that will affect the quality of the land. Land degradation is any change in characteristics of land which reduce its quality or else that reduce its fertility is called land degradation. So human activities have brought land degradation of land. Some of the degradation is direct and some are indirect. Causes of land degradation is familiar to us: deforestation, then dumping of industrial waste, then overgrazing, mining, quarrying. All these contributed to land degradation. So now conservation measures. What are the conservation measures which we can take to avoid land degradation? As I said, deforestation is one of the prominent cause of land degradation. So to avoid deforestation, we can go ahead with afforestation. Afforestation and proper management of grazing can help to reduce land degradation to a great extent. Then another prominent way to conserve land degradation is planting of shelter belt of plants, control on overgrazing, stabilization of sand dunes by growing thorny bushes. These are some of the methods to check land degradation. Then the next is even proper management of wastelands, control of the mining activities, proper discharge and disposal of industrial effluents and wastes after treatment can reduce land and water degradation in industrial and suburban areas. Then finally, we learned the heading soil as a resource. There we learned about mainly the classification of soil. Now let's revise the classification of soil, starting with the alluvial soil. The entire northern plains are made of alluvial soil. These have been deposited by the three important Himalayan river systems, the Indus River, the Ganga River, and the Brahmaputra River. These soils also extend in Rajasthan and Gujarat through a narrow corridor. Alluvial soil is also found in the eastern coastal plains, particularly in the deltas of the Mahanadi, Godavari, Krishna, and the Kaveri rivers. The alluvial soil consists of various proportions of sand, silt, and clay. As we move inlands towards the river valleys, soil particularly appears somewhat bigger in size. In the upper reaches of the river valley, that is near the place of the break of slope, the soils are coarse. Such soils are most common in the Terai regions. According to their age, alluvial soil can be divided into two: old alluvial soil and new alluvial soil. The old alluvial soil is known as Bhangar and the new alluvial soil is known as Khadar. According to the age, the Bhangar soils are called old alluvial soil, and the Bhangar soils have high concentration of Kangar nodules or calcium nodules or calcium deposits, and these soils are less fertile, and the grains of these soils are coarse. However, Khadar soils are called new alluvial soils. Grains of these soils are smaller, fine particles, and they are more fertile and they have less concentration of Kangar. Alluvial soil as a whole, it is a fertile soil rich in potash, phosphoric acid, and lime. As a result, we have good growth of wheat, paddy, pulses, and sugarcane. Next, we learned about black soil. These soils are black in color and it is also known as regur soil. It is ideal for growing cotton and it is also known as black cotton soil. Climatic condition along with the parent rock material are the important factors for the formation of black soil. This type of soil is typical of the Deccan Trap region spread over northwest Deccan Plateau, and it is made up of lava flows. They cover plateaus of Maharashtra, Saurashtra, Malwa, Madhya Pradesh, and Chhattisgarh, and extend in the southeast directions along the Godavari and the Krishna valleys. The black soils are made up of extremely fine and clayey material. They are well known for their capacity to hold moisture. They are rich in soil nutrients such as calcium carbonate, magnesium, potash, and lime. These soils are generally poor in phosphoric contents. They develop deep cracks during hot weather, which helps in the proper aeration of the soil. Next, we learned about red and yellow soils. Red and yellow soils. Red soils develop on crystalline igneous rocks in areas of low rainfall in the eastern and southern parts of the Deccan Plateau. Then yellow and red soils are also found mainly in parts of Odisha, Chhattisgarh, southern parts of the Middle Ganga plain, and along the Piedmont zone of the Western Ghats. These soil develop a reddish color due to diffusion of iron in crystalline and metamorphic rocks. It looks yellow when it occurs in a hydrated form. Next, we learned about the laterite soil. The laterite soil develops in areas with high temperature and heavy rainfall. This is the result of intense leaching due to heavy rain. Humus content of the soil is low because most of the microorganisms, particularly the decomposers like bacteria, get destroyed due to high temperature. Laterite soils are suitable for cultivation with adequate doses of manures and fertilizers. These soils are mainly found in Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Madhya Pradesh, and the hilly areas of Odisha and Assam. This soil is very useful for growing tea and coffee. Red laterite soils in Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, and Kerala are more suitable for crops like cashew nut. Then we learned about the arid soil. Arid soil range from red to brown in color. This soil is seen in the arid areas of the Thar Desert. They are generally sandy in texture and saline in nature. The salt content is very high and common salt is obtained by evaporating the water. It is common to the areas of dry climate where you have high temperature and fast evaporation. This soil lacks humus and moisture. There is low horizons, and in the lower horizons it have Kangar nodules as seen in the Bhangar soil, which is a kind of alluvial soil. The Kangar layer formations in the bottom horizons restrict the infiltration of water. They are loamy and silty in valley sides and coarse grained in the upper slopes. Next, we learned about the forest soil. Forest soil is seen in the hilly and the mountainous areas and silt deposits which are seen towards the valley sides. Towards the valley, we have the loam and silty soil. However, towards the upper range, the soil is much more coarse or much more bigger particles as compared to the lower regions where the particles are much finer. In the areas which are covered with snow, the soil is mainly acidic with very low humus content, and in the lower valleys we have alluvial soil which is highly fertile in nature. And finally, we learned about soil erosion and soil conservation. Soil erosion means the removal of the topsoil. The denudation of the soil cover and subsequent washing down is known as soil erosion. The running water cuts through the clay soils and makes deep channels known as gullies. The land becomes unfit for cultivation, and such kind of land is known as a bad land. In the Chambal Basin, such lands are called ravines. Sometimes water flows as a sheet over large areas down a slope. In such cases, the topsoil is washed away. This is known as sheet erosion. Plowing along the contour lines can decelerate the flow of water down the slopes. This is called contour plowing. Steps can be cut on the slopes, making terraces. Terrace cultivation restricts soil erosion. Strips of grass are left to grow between the crops. This breaks up the force of the wind. This method is known as strip irrigation. So these are the different ways to conserve soil erosion. By this, we concluded the summary of the chapter Resources and Development. Thank you, students. Have a good day ahead.